basic retouching techniques for photographers and content creators inside Photoshop. In this video, I want to demonstrate you some basic techniques and tools you need to know when you're working inside Photoshop on a retouching job. Nothing too fancy, but all the basic tools you should know. And a hardware tool I definitely would recommend is a Wacom tablet. In my case, I'm working with a Cintiq Pro 24-inch tablet, and I'm really working on the screen, and that's a nice thing to do when you're retouching. But also the normal Intuos series from Wacom are also a great tool to work on your retouching. So I will start here in Lightroom, and then I will switch over to Photoshop. One point, I did a video before where I explained how to set up the connection between Lightroom Classic and Photoshop. So in which file format and in which color space you should hop over to Photoshop and then come back. So if you don't know how to do it and how to set up the right way, then just go back some videos and watch the video. So I will start in Lightroom as mentioned before and jump over to Photoshop. So here I'm in Lightroom. I switch to the develop module and just will do my basic settings. So I lighten up the shadows a little bit and go down to the details and just look if there is everything to do. Yeah, maybe a little bit of a noise reduction. So I think I have to do a sharpening and noise reduction tutorial in the near future. But in special or in general, just go not too fancy with the look. Just go with a neutral look and then switch over to Photoshop. The shortcut to switching over to Photoshop for the retouching work is Command E. This image, this raw file, gets handed over to Photoshop, and now I'm here inside of Photoshop. And a really crucial thing for the working inside of Photoshop is to work with a new layer. So I press on the small icon here, have a new layer, and that's my retouching layer. And on this retouching layer, I can switch over to the retouching tools. And this tool over here, the spot healing brush with the shortcut J, is really a good starting point and a quite fast tool for retouching. Very important is that you have selected in the options sample all layers, because then, as the name implies, you don't just sample from the empty layer over here, you just sample from all layers. Because if this checkbox is off and retouching, I can also activate the background layer, and now retouching, nothing will happen because this tool just samples the current layer, and this was the empty retouching layer. If sample all layers is active, then you can switch on the background layer or work on the retouching layer. And when you zoom in and just go over the parts of the image you want to retouch, you see everything is working just fine. So that's a good way to work, because now all your retouching is on this layer. As you see, when I'm pressing low on my graphic pen, then I have a small button or a small brush size. I can resize everything and retouch over this, like here. And so you're really working fast, because on your Wacom pen, I have the settings that when I'm pressing hard, the size of the brush tip increases, and when I'm just pressing softly, then I have a really small brush tip, and that's a good thing for retouching. In special, when you want to change the size, you have here on the Mac, hold the Control and the Option key, so really Control and Option. On Windows, it's the Option and Right key on your mouse. So here on Mac, Control, Option, Left mouse key. On Windows, Option, Right mouse key. And press and go to the right, then you can change the size, and up and down you can change the opacity, not the opacity, the hardness. So I will stay with a small and hard brush, and now I can go in and retouch the things away that I don't want to have, and just go over, let Photoshop do its work, and just go and change this over here, like this. Yeah, so I think it should work. Okay, when you want to change the position of the image, you have to hold the spacebar down, then you have the hand tool, and now you can zoom or pan around in the image. If you want to zoom, hold the spacebar and the command key. On Windows, the spacebar and the STRG, or also the control key. And now you can click with the mouse and turn it to the right to zoom in, and turn it to the left or move it to the left to zoom out. And when you leave these keys alone, then you see you have the tool that you had before. So in my case, it's the spot healing brush tool over here, shortcut J. So this whole stuff is called spring-loaded keys. So as long as you're on the key on the keyboard and press down with the keys, you have the tool, the hand tool. For example, now it's the spacebar, and when you leave it, you have the retouching tool again. So when I now press on the eyeball from my background layer, you see where I have retouched. So this all is my retouching. And when I enable the background layer again, then you see where I did the retouching. So that's before and that's afterwards. Okay, so what other tools can you use for retouching? So as mentioned before, the spot healing brush tool is really handy for working on surfaces where there are some things to change, and Photoshop will automatically fill in the gaps. If you want to have more precision from where Photoshop is taking the source, you can switch over to the healing brush tool, shortcut J again. So you can switch via the Shift and J key between the retouching tools. And here it's a little bit different. I will start with my tool preset. And also you have to sample all layers, because I have an empty layer and I want to sample all layers. Here with this tool, you also have the option to the current and below. And that's really a handy trick when you have something laying above your retouching layer. For example, I will create let's say I will create a noise layer. So noise, shift backspace. I fill the noise layer with 50% gray, like so. Now I want to go and right click and create or convert this layer into a smart object. So I have a smart object gray layer. Switch the blend mode to soft light. So the gray isn't seen anymore, because soft light is, or gray is for the blend mode of soft light, the neutral layer or a neutral color, and so I see nothing. But now I can go to the filter menu. Here inside filter, I can go into the noise category and add some noise. Here I would definitely recommend to use monochromatic noise. And then, just for the sake of demonstration, I really pump up the noise hard and go to Gaussian noise like this. So I have a noise layer. And when I now go back down to the retouching layer and work with the spot healing brush, or with the healing brush tool, not with the spot healing brush, you now have the option to change from all layers, where Photoshop would take the layers above, to current and below. And now Photoshop will just look on these two layers down here. And when I now retouch something, okay, it's hard to see the retouching. I can sample from here and go over this point over there, like so. And after that, this should be retouched. Yes. And when I now deselect or hide the noise layer, you will see that I can retouch on the layers below the noise layer. And so it's not so dangerous to sample from layers above and sample image regions or styles, looks that you don't want to sample by any means. Okay, so that's my noise layer. It's a little bit extreme, so I can double click on the add noise and go down to 20% or something like this, and have now the noise applied on this image. Okay, here I have some color issues, and for the color issues I would create a new layer here and call this layer color fix, like this. And this layer should be in the blend mode of color. And what this does is, when you go to the brush, and I take a soft brush, a big and soft brush with less opacity, so let's say around 20% opacity, I can now sample with the eyedropper, shortcut I. If you want to sample directly, and here definitely go to an average of 11 by 11 or 31 by 31. And now I just take a color from here, switch to the brush tool, and can brush in the color. And because the blend mode of the layer is also set to color, I can gently paint in the color over the reddish region, like this. And if you want to see the before, just hide the eyeball or hide the layer. So this was the before, and that's the after. So a normal color layer, so empty layer in the blend mode of color, and then go to a brush, to a really soft brush with less opacity, and now we can, via option click, sample color, and paint this over where you want to change the color. So like this. Then I go back to my retouching layer, sample with the option key, and can now retouch some points over here. Yeah, and so I think it's quite okay and should work a little bit bigger. With the option key, I always sample the region I want to take. So option click, go over to here, and now I can retouch this region like this. Option click and go over this region. Okay, so I will apply the noise again. And now I also want to apply an image look. So here I go to my correction layers and take a gradient map. And the gradient map will map the colors. And on the left side you have the dark colors, and on the right side you have the light colors. And in this case, all my blacks are becoming this nude sandy color, and all my whites will stay white. So that's a cool look in its own. But I want to change it. So I click onto this layer or this gradient icon, go to the dark color, change the color to something darker bluish, like this, press on OK, and now I have the dark colors mapped to blue, the black colors to blue, and the white colors will stay white. But if I want to have the original look and feel from the image below, then you have to change the blend mode from this gradient map layer from normal to soft light. And when you do so, you can now change with the gradient editor how dark the darkest region should be, and how much of the color, how much saturation you want to have inside the dark regions of your image, like so. Here you have the whites, so the white region should stay white, but in the middle, like this, you can go in and add another color, let's say something warm, like an orangey look. And with this axis, with the y-axis, you can go darker or brighter. And with the x-axis, you can go with more saturation, or on the left with less saturation. So I will, pinpoint myself somewhere over here. Yes, press on OK here. And then I have the before and the after. It's a little bit too much of the yellow. So I go in, take the yellow, and a little bit less saturation. So I go to the left, like so. And now I have the look applied onto my image. So what's the takeaway of this? Just work with tools that are working for you. Create a new layer. Take the spot healing brush to heal spots inside an area. That's working quite fine. If you need more control, take the healing brush, and with the option key, you can sample from a skin region, for example. And then without the option key, you can go over and retouch this region to the targeted region. That's quite okay. And then for some special addition effects, let's say it like this, you can add some noise. And with this technique I demonstrated before, you are very, very flexible with the amount of the noise. You can always change the noise afterwards. And on top of this, I worked with a gradient map. And so you can dial in the contrast, and you can dial in simultaneously the color for the darks and the lights or the midtones. And that's a really, really flexible way to tune your images. So now my retouching on this image is ready. and I want to go back to Lightroom, and that's quite easy. So I just have to save it. So Command S to save this image. Now the image gets saved, gets sent back to Lightroom, and when the saving is done, I can switch over to Lightroom. Let's wait a moment. And now switch over to Lightroom, and here you see next to my original image, that's here on the right, next to my original image, I have my retouched version. So I will select both of the images here inside of Lightroom and press on the N key for the survey view, then on the tab key to see a little bit more. I can also switch off the lights with L and L again, and now I have the original on the right and the retouched on the left, and I can compare these two images and see which of the images I like the best. If you like this video, give it a like. If you're not a subscriber right now, press on the subscribe button and also ring the bell so you will never miss a new video when I publish it. So, and if you have comments or some questions, write them down inside the comments of the YouTube video. So, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. See ya!